I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I've always found Vivian Campbell's 1980s guitar solos to be a little intimidating. Ever since I started this channel, I've been wanting to tackle something from his work with Ronnie James Dio that wasn't the obvious holy diver. And it took me almost 5 years to finally muster up the courage to do so. So I finally decided on the title track of Dio's second studio album, The Last in Line, because it's a really cool and musically interesting solo, and the song is still well known enough so that you don't have to be a die-hard fan to appreciate it. If this is your first time here, welcome to Licks of the Beast. My name is Nico, and this is a place where I like to talk about guitars and heavy metal music. If you look through the channel, you'll find everything from covers to tutorials to guitar reviews, as well as some history and fun facts about the music that you and I are so passionate about. I hope you'll feel right at home and that you'll stick around for more videos. Now, before I play this awesome solo for you, I wanted to talk about a few really neat things that Vivian does that deserve a closer look. And whether or not you play guitar, understanding these things can give you a deeper appreciation for the music. Okay, so let's start by taking a quick look at what the accompaniment is doing, because it really all starts from there. So it's mostly just going back and forth between the F and A power chords in the key of A minor. So this frames the solo really nicely, and because these are power chords that are neither major nor minor, it allows Vivian to play around freely so that he can use chromatics or different scales, or even play modally if he wants to. And the rhythm dictates the pace because the first half features rests and laid back rhythm, while things pick up in the second half with a gallop. Also, because it's going back and forth between the 6th chord and the home chord, it creates a nice, comfortable loop that could go on indefinitely because there isn't any particular pull in one direction or another. And then the addition of the 7th chord G during the last bars that creates an obvious pull towards the home chord, and that strongly implies that we've reached the solo's climax. This is a simple but very effective way to lay the foundation for a solo that people are going to remember for decades. So now let me show you two neat things that Vivian does that really stand out. The first one is what he plays right after the opening line. And I love the squeals that I'm getting with this Strat now that it's got one of my custom-made humbuckers by Corrigan pickups. This is actually going to be my own signature pickup, so be on the lookout for news about that in the near future. Anyway, this is such a great example of a true classic metal phrase, and it goes back to what I said about the accompaniment allowing him to play chromatically or use different scales. And in fact, here he goes from natural minor or Aeolian mode to harmonic minor for just a few bars by making all the G's sharp. Now the slightly exotic sound of that scale and the deliberate pace of the phrase keeps you paying attention. Now the coolest thing that he does here is how he seamlessly switches back to natural minor for the remainder of the solo. At the end of the phrase, after having hit 3 consecutive G sharps, he ends on this G natural. And he lays into it for an entire bar. Now insisting on that flat 7 after those 3 major 7s essentially resets the vibe back to natural minor. But if he had played another major 7th, that harmonic minor loop could have continued indefinitely. Now, of course, one could do that, but then it might start to sound tedious, and then the risk is that people stop paying attention. So by keeping that exotic harmonic minor vibe to just a few bars, Vivian is able to enchant us and keep us fully engaged throughout his entire solo. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this stretched lick that he does in the last quarter of the solo. Now on the surface, this is just a 3-note pattern on a single string played in rapid succession. But what makes it worth a closer look is the reason why this particular phrasing and articulation works so brilliantly and so much better than the two more obvious alternatives. Let me show you what I mean. So if he had played the exact same notes on the same string but with finger tapping, that's more of a Randy Rhoads or Eddie Van Halen kind of vibe. And on this section of the song, it would sound a bit too fluid and wouldn't have quite the same impact. And if he had played it in the more common triangular two-string arpeggio pattern like this, it would have been a bit too jagged, maybe a bit too harsh sounding, and it would have felt a bit out of place in this otherwise smoothly paced solo. It also would take away from the impact of that final ascending run. So by playing it on one string with this big stretch, Vivian gets just enough fluidity to ensure a smooth continuity, and because he can pick the first note of the pattern every time, it gives that lick a bit more bite. And the wide stretch also makes the notes come out just a few milliseconds slower compared to finger tapping, which is a lot smoother. So you're getting a bit of a different, very distinct vibe, and that always gets people to react. Alright, so whether or not you play guitar, I really do hope you got something out of these few points. And now I'm gonna shut up and play the solo for you. I will say that I made a point of learning this one carefully by ear and by watching a few clips of Vivian playing it live, just to make sure that I had the correct fingerings. Because I really wanted to try to recreate the vibe and the feel of his original solo, rather than my own interpretation of it. So in a way, this is both a tribute to Vivian's work and a challenge to myself. Thank you all so much for watching, guys. Cheers.